Hey there, and welcome to the A.D.K channel. I, of course, am Dave. There's no Andy or Kirk with me this evening as they are off on other interviews with some bands from the local Hertfordshire scene. But with me today, I have Luke Hinton, the CEO of Juicebox Live. Is it promotions? I'm not sure if it had a promotion yet.
Juicebox Live? Just called Juicebox Live. The company name is that, but there's various parts to the company, so there's
various bows to your arrow, or arrows to your bow, I guess, as they say. So welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, you're more than welcome. It's yours is a name that's definitely been bandied around the area in a good way, which is always nice.
It's always nice to hear. I'm sure there's some who don't think that, but who knows.
There's plenty. Well, a lot of the bands that obviously we work with that play at the Club 85 in Hitchin, and we know from obviously where they play within the Hertfordshire scene, like the Corn Exchange and the Horn in St Albans.
Yep.
Can't remember the one in the Bishop Stortford.
Half Moon in Bishop Stortford.
Half Moon, yes. So a lot of our friends in bands like Sentient and Scarlet Envy and a whole host of others all know you and all appreciate working with you. So we thought it was a great opportunity to have you on the channel, talk about what you do. Just to help us understand, anyone that doesn't understand or know what Juicebox Live is, could you just, in a very brief umbrella, explain what Juicebox Live is?
Okay, Juicebox Live essentially is a promotion company, but through that we program the three venues you mentioned, which is obviously the Horn in St Albans, Hertford Corn Exchange, and Half Moon Bishop Stortford. But outside of that, we then put on events across the east and southeast of England. But predominantly, I'd say 300 shows a year, roughly, we do within those three venues.
Okay. And just for anyone that's not sure what the difference between a programming and a promoter is, could you just give us the kind of difference of what that involves from your side of it?
As a programmer of a venue, my responsibility is to book the diary up, is to make sure that the diary is filled, and I'm working on behalf of the venue to fill that. As a promoter, it may be more selective. It might be something, because those of you do know what we do, you may also see a lot of the things say Juicebox Indie, and I'm thinking I'll see a lot of the audience maybe more on the head of the spectrum. But it is something that when we started, we were an indie promoter. We promoted indie music. That's where my background lays. But what then took on the Horn initially as a booker there, obviously we have to cater for all tastes, and that is something for me, is it expanded my taste in music by having that, rather than being very, that's what I like.
Right.
It became a lot more that I could attend something like Download and actually enjoy parts of it, whereas before I was like, I'm never going to that. So it became something, it definitely opened my ears. It became something there. But yeah, as a booker, it is something, my responsibility is to put on the shows in the venues that essentially will work for the venue, because if they don't work, I don't have a job. But also it is the thing of it, I'm not booking for my own taste.
Right.
It is something that I'm booking on basically the audience taste, or the local music community's taste generally. So if there is a large community of bands who are from one genre, then obviously that venue is going to perhaps get more of that than other genres. It might be that there's the audience demand is for more of one style to another. So yes, that's essentially where it can vary. Like as a promoter, I will be like, I can work on that, but I'm not the only one in the team now. When I started, it was myself and my wife running it. She was more on the DJ side, I was more on the live booking side.
Right.
But as we've developed and as we've grown, it's been something we've been able to offer opportunities to bring people into the team. And I've consciously tried to bring people in who have different music tastes to what I do, because as much as I'd love it if everyone listened to exactly the same things as me and wanted to do that, I think it'd also become very boring, and it'd become very stagnant in music. I think it's something because music develops by having different things, and you could have an indie band with a metal drummer and it'll produce a very different sound
Yeah.
and it could be a very good thing. And I think you look at bands like Enter Shikari, who obviously it's an Albans band, who have influences from very different areas, so ranging from electronic music and drum and bass and things like that to indie to metal to folk to everything. And that to me is, it's, if you don't experiment and do those things, then you're just gonna be doing the same thing over and over again, and that's maybe it just becomes a little bit boring and
Right.
trying to reinvent the wheel.
Very true. So talking about, so obviously when you started, I've got you down as that the Juicebox came together in around 2007.
Yeah, so summer 2007 was the kind of idea of Juicebox. Kind of
Was that a wake up in the morning, kind of go, do you know what? I'm going to do promotion. How did it come to you that you started doing
it? Was basically, there was 4 of us sitting in a pub in Hemel, moaning about not basically why wasn't anything happening locally. That was essentially it. 3 of them being DJs and me being stupid. And me being, let's do something about it. And then I kind of, well, we'll just DJ at the events we DJ. And they were sort of in, like, we were all in the same sort of music. We had a group of friends who kind of liked the same things as us. And I knew a few bands, and I'd done a bit of like street teaming for bands. I've been out flyering for bands and known lots of people. So like friends had gone out and supported on arena tours and things like that. So I kind of had not put on events officially. I've been involved in doing the bits, but it was more supporting mates' bands and that type of thing. But it was essentially just, why am I going into Camden every single night to watch the bands that I want? And can we do something locally? And it ended up being the Flag, or O'Neill's as it is now in Watford, next to Watford Junction train station. We'd been there a few times to watch some of our friends' bands, and I basically just messaged one of the guys doing it and said, how do I put on a gig here?
Yeah.
And literally it was, he said to me, this is how you do it. These are the dates we've got available. Do you want to start in October? And it was like, yeah, all right then. And I'll be able to book loads of stuff, trying to book like huge bands to come in. And it's like, what's the capacity of the venue? Oh, it's like 800. Obviously the venue isn't 800.
Yeah.
Well, it was before they put the wall in. You could get 800 people in there, but not everyone could see the stage. But
yeah,
it was kind of a bit of. There was definitely an element of that. It was something of, I know the bands, we kind of know how it works, and then it was put it all on and, as I say, and go with the flow. So that was, it started. So October 2007 was the first official Juicebox gig, which is
okay.
Seems a long time ago. I think I've got bands playing shows for us now who weren't born. So that's kind of
scary, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, and that's something that I've had to change over the years.
Yeah.
When I started it, I was mid-20s, and a lot of the bands who were playing were not that much younger than me, or same age as me, and so pretty much they're going, it's like you're putting on gigs with your mates. Whereas now there's an element of, well, actually half the bands, they're not looking at me as going, I'm one of their peers. They're looking at me perhaps as a parental or teacher or someone in official capacity. And it's kind of like, so that, again, that's something of a lot of where you're talking to bands and working bands. It's partially why I'm perhaps a little bit more behind the scenes than I used to be when we started, because I feel as though that the team that we have perhaps will have those better connections on the night with the artists as well. And it can lead me to do things like this, go and watch other bands in other parts of the country, and the boring bit of the admin and putting all the things together. And it is something that you have to do, but it is, I say, it's an essential part of it, and sometimes gets in the way. And in a way, I'd rather be doing that and letting the people who are better at it me do it now.
And how is it the bands, I mean, how do bands approach you guys about getting gigs with you? What is it you look for from these bands, as far as are you expecting them to have full Facebook profiles, material to put out there, and what do you expect from them?
It varies where they are in their ongoing sort of journey.
Yeah.
It's the whole, being a venue programmer, my view is somewhere like the Horn especially is the place where you're going to start out and you're going to develop and learn what you do. We don't expect every band to be the finished article, because if they were, they wouldn't be playing a 200 cap venue in St Albans. So therefore, it is something they would be playing Wembley Stadium, or they'll be playing at the O2 or wherever it may be. So for me, it's something about giving those bands the opportunity to grow and learn what they're doing on stage. In terms of getting in touch, people either get in touch either through our apply to play forms, which are on the venue website or on the Juicebox website, emailing the venues, emailing me, word of mouth, social media, whatever way it is just getting in touch. But actually getting the shows in, it will vary on what we have available. It is something of my focus, again, for the venue is focusing on local talent essentially. And then once a band is at the point of there is some sort of a buzz or about them, where they're getting some sort of press, they're getting radio play, whatever it is, then that's where we'll look at bands who are from outside of the local area. Because as much as as a promoter, I can sit and say, I love that band, I can tell the world about it. When I'm putting on something where I don't know a great deal about them, and they might not be my personal taste, and I'm working as a booker, I want to be, if I am selling that show, I want something to sell. I don't want it to be that it gets lost in the other shows that are happening at the venue. Because if the Horn has got 6 nights of live music, sometimes 7 nights of live music every week, so it becomes a thing of how do you stand out from the crowd. So if a band gets in touch from North Wales and says, we want to do a show at the Horn, we've heard it's great, well, you've got to have something for us to be able to tell Joe Blogs about it.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously bands from the local region, their fan base is going to be predominantly made up of friends and family in the initial stages, and that there's nothing wrong with that, and it's about growing it. For us, those things are key for us to be able to help see where the development of an artist goes, and if we can get them on bigger support slots and the types of shows that are available. Because if we're given the opportunity to add a local band to a show where there's a touring band where there's a lot of tickets sold, that tends to be because the agent and management of that bigger artist wants more tickets through the door. If it's going to sell out already, invariably they will tell us that they're adding their own support,
right?
Because they're using it to give the exposure, again using a word that gets bandied about a lot, but to give exposure to a new audience to a band that they're working with. For me, one of the things I then try to do with that is if the agent or management are putting an artist on the bill that we're not having a great deal of say about, I will then try and get it contracted that artist will come back within the next 2 years, so that we can see whether that works. Because if you sticking a band in front of 200 people who've never seen them before, and then you don't ever go back to it, well, what was the point of doing that in that show? Yeah. So to me, it would be the thing, let's get them to come back, and it might then be that band might only be worth 30 tickets or 50 tickets, and we can add local supports on to play to new people, but also to make connections with bands that are sort of like the journey of growing in terms of any form of success, whatever success may be. But also it is just making it that sort of fun night rather than just a local sort of showcase type event.
Okay.
So to me, it could be something where it could take years for a band to get to that. And as I say, success can be measured in different ways. A band selling out a venue might not be the success that they were aiming for, or what we're aiming for from them. Essentially, the main thing for success for me is that people are enjoying what they're doing. Look, to be honest, we all want the venue to be sold out and busy. Everyone wants that. Everyone wants that to be the case. However, for whatever reason, it might not happen. And but I one of my jobs, again, as a booker and as a promoter, is to try and work out the reasons why that may be. I get told a lot it's because it's not a weekend, it's not a Saturday night.
Yeah, okay.
Believe me, in 15 years or so, I've got data going back every single show we've ever had.
Yeah.
Saturday nights aren't busier for bands than
no.
Tuesday night. Saturday nights are busier on the bar. And again, Joe Blogs, who's standing in the bar, downing shots and shots of Jaeger bombs, to be honest, doesn't really care about what the band is. They actually prefer the tribute bands and cover bands because it's background music. Whereas you might feel as though there will be a few more friends going out on the Friday or Saturday, but also your friends have other options on a Friday and Saturday night. So those who are coming along just to support, they may actually decide to go to the cinema on a Friday or Saturday night. So there's actually a lot more for them to pick and choose from. So people go, oh, we don't want to go out on a Tuesday because it's a school night. Well, no one's forcing you to drink 6 pints. So it is the thing of whether they want to go out or not. Again, Liam Gallagher doesn't play the O2 on a Monday night because he's concerned that he's not going to sell the tickets. People go out and watch it. I know that's on a different level, but it is the thing of if people want to go out and see it, they will.
I mean,
that comes down to basically choosing and planning gigs. It's if you do too many gigs close to each other and you're giving people a choice between each show, it's going to fluctuate because of availability. But it becomes a thing of people start drifting away because they're like, oh, we'll see them in a week's time in the same area. So it's kind of that planning and that I want to see a band selling out Club 85, whether it's my show or not, because it just creates that buzz. And that to me is the thing of like, if you're seeing that band doing it all the time, it's only going to spread further and further. So outside of this region, if people are seeing that band is creating that buzz, it will just pick up and you'll get booked in for gigs in other places. One, because promoters talk to each other in the same way as bands do.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that we raised at the beginning of the year when we were talking about Metal to the Masses, and we talked about promotions versus promoters, venues and bands, about who needs to put in the legwork about promoting gigs. And we actually said, well, it's all free. It's not just one. But also we raised the same issue that you've just said, which is bands playing too many venues, too close together, too often, which means very much in the case of people aren't buying the advance tickets. And then they go, do you know what? It's a bit bad weather tonight. I'll catch you in a couple of weeks when you're playing down the road.
As a promoter and as a venue booker, advance tickets, especially at the grassroots level, are essential at the moment, more than they've ever been in my time. Because venues can't plan.
No.
And at the moment, this has always been the case, but in terms of staffing levels, if basically everyone pays on the door and there's been 10% of the venue capacity sold, purchased online, they're probably planning for a quiet night.
Yeah.
Because if everyone then turns up on the night and then everyone who's there is moaning that it's taken 3 songs for them to get a beer, well, it's because that's part of the reason is that the bath, and especially now, is that they can't afford to pay for extra staff. Venues are losing money by being open. That's the general truth. One of the roles obviously I haven't touched upon is that I've worked for Music Venue Trust during COVID as the coordinator for East England. My job was basically to save 96 venues.
Okay.
And at that point, we thought that was the worst scenario that we were going to go through for venues. Obviously, post that, there's been ups and downs in gig attendances, like the first couple of months or first sort of 4 to 6 months after we reopened, everyone was like, this is the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
Every single show was selling out. You didn't even have to put a name on the poster and people bought tickets. Whereas then, middle of last year, sort of about this sort of time last year, was the worst I've ever known it. And now it's it's gone very boom or bust. It's either very busy or relatively quiet. So it's a very strange sort of scenario. But the issues we've got now is that energy crisis, cost of living. Venues, let's say, Music Venue Trust released an annual report a couple of months ago, which was presented at Parliament. So I was invited to go up to the House of the Parliament for this presentation. In the report, the grassroots venue sector is worth £550 million in the British economy. It costs £549 million to put those events for those venues to operate, so it was operating at a 0.2% profit margin.
Yeah.
Before the energy crisis. So what it's worth looking at now, and the quote that was given at Parliament was, grassroots venues aren't staring over the edge of the cliff. They're already tumbling down it. Since the start of this year, at least one venue a week has closed. It's continuing. It's going to keep continuing. So it is something of what can be done. Well, going out supporting gigs does it, but that's not going to cover the deficit in energy and things like that. Energy bills aren't going to be adapted. The government's not going to be able to do anything in the next couple of years because the government's skint, and also they're going to be fighting a general election in the next couple of years. So they're not going to suddenly put any sort of taxes out and increase things, because it'd be sort of suicidal for any government to say that. So what we need is actually the industry to step up and do something, and looking at trying to get a levy on tickets at arena and stadium level to pay like 50p of every ticket sold at that level would probably do 80% of the deficit that there is. But it is something of, this is why it's essential for one, people to go and support venues and buy drinks and book tickets in advance, because that's as venues are cancelling things, and they're cancelling things more than they ever have done, because they are staring at it saying, if we don't know that show's going to even swipe its feet, we can't afford to take the risk. And that is something that I've seen happen a lot. You're seeing a lot of tours. I had a show which basically the tour got pulled. Our show wasn't doing too bad, to be fair, but the tour got pulled, or it got postponed, generally because of the lack of sales across the board. And it was like, well, I had a load of people message me saying, oh, that's a shame, I was going to come to that, I hadn't booked tickets. It's like, because you hadn't booked the tickets is the reason the show's not happening. So it's a catch-22. But because those shows are getting pulled, people are then reluctant to book tickets, because in case it happens again. So and that's not just at grassroots level, that's happening at obviously like upwards as well. So it is something of, it's strange times. But yeah, one message I'd put out is to anyone, is book tickets in advance, because it helps planning. But for me, even if you are feeling the crunch personally, if you book tickets for something in a month's time, you're spending part of the money you were spending on that night now, rather than a night. So that £30, £40 night out is still a £30 or £40 night out, but it's spread over a period of time. So to me, it can do that. But it's like holidays or large gigs or festivals or whatever it may be. You have something to look forward to. Looking forward to something in times where things are a little bit more negative or than they have been, is to have something positive to look forward to, because I think that to me is just good for just general mental health, is to have these things that you look forward to. And that to me is one of the key things of what we do. Is live music is one of the best things to for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, is getting out, being around other people. But if you want to talk to them or not, is you're in an environment. I think after the last couple of years, we're fully aware of how important that is. Watching something you enjoy, or maybe you don't enjoy, but you may discover something that you absolutely adore. But it is just that buzz of being at a gig. And that to me is something of, it's trying to make sure that you have that thing, but you're around like-minded people, that you're generally in safe environments. All of that is what it's about, and that to me is trying to push it, obviously fully conscious that obviously people have their own financial issues, and things like events and socializing can sometimes be pushed to the back, because it's not necessarily an essential thing when it comes to paying your mortgage or your rent. But to me, I think it is essential for personal well-being.
I agree. It was we did do a whole video about are there too many festivals now, and surely the sheer number of the sizes of these festivals is killing the local venue scenes, because the festivals go on for so long now. They start in mid-April and they go on till late September, whereas it used to be 20 years ago, it used to be just the summer months. You'd have 3 months of the festivals, and now every place under the sun has a festival which has 20 bands on it, which means people are saving their money just to go to those. which is killing the smaller venues on the rock nights and stuff like that. But that gets into a whole other different discussion as well about festival sizes. But I did want to touch base quickly on one thing about the promotion and the booking or the programming element. So one thing we noticed especially with the Hartford Corn Exchange, which is my local venue, because we've watched a lot of bands there, and we were really surprised by the fact that the only thing that we ever saw about publicising of these gigs was on the band's events page. So when they posted there's this event, we knew about it, but when we went to the venue, we had no idea about the venue. There's nothing on the venue pages. So the only way you would know there's an event on is if the band had promoted it. If you walk past the venue, there's nothing to say there's an event night on that night. There's nothing on their website to tell you there's a rock night or these bands are playing. And that's why when we've been there on 3 or 4 occasions, it's been the few people that we knew that knew those bands that are there, and that's it.
Because everything in terms of the socials, things are scheduled generally every day. Yeah. When there's an event, if something goes out on the socials, and there will be posts made and reshared of bands resharing it. The website's got everything on. There is an old website, with the old venue website, but every single show is on there. Okay. There are weekly mail outs done to the mailing list.
So I get the weekly mail out from the Hartford Corn Exchange, and they never have anything about the metal nights that are on. Because I know obviously they just had the War Torn. So it's just something I didn't know if you were aware of, because I was like, because
it's when the weekly one goes out, it should just show should have the weekly listings of the events that are happening. And obviously there are sometimes there are obviously show announcements or upcoming show mail outs. But there's things that I would admit that sometimes there may be a week that it hasn't gone out because I may have been away and left it not to be done. So, but generally,
I don't know anything about the other venues because I haven't been to like the Horn, so I don't know. It was just when we've been there and we were like, we're walking at the bar and you're like, and then printed media, I understand, because printed media, you know how it is with bands, they swap, they change. You can't...
to be honest, is that again, it depends on. Sometimes it'll depend on what type of event. If there's whether there's posters up in the venue, sometimes it depends on whether the posters are turned up. But generally, everything should have an element of promotion. Sometimes there are showcase events might not get as much as a show with, let's say, we announced it yesterday. It might not receive quite the same level, or because there's different budgets allocated in terms of the promotion. So it might be that there's a pushing budget that is used. However, everything is listed, everything is shared, everything is put out there. But sometimes some posters or something outside the venue, because we've added extra poster points to what they used to be.
Yeah.
So there's, I think, 6 out the front now. One tends to be a monthly listings.
Yeah, seen that.
We've got a couple of like just bold things. I think a lot of that can sometimes be as well whatever is eye-catching. Some of those can be like, like a tribute band. It'll say the Rolling Stones, and then in
a lot of the tribute things, and Republica were playing there, and
those things,
Stone Broken and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes it will be things of trying to, like the emails, there may be titles of putting it out there, and it'd be things. It is something that there should be a weekly mail out that lists what's coming up that week. That normally goes out on a Monday.
Yeah.
And that should say what's happening each week. I say there may well be there's been weeks where things have been missed, that's not been deliberate, but it should be on there. The actual website, the listing should have everything. Okay. It literally should have everything on the what's on part of the website. The socials, I say there's daily posts scheduled. It's and again, there shouldn't be any reason why that's not done. But I think sometimes it's just some may appear more like, I know that I've just seen that the Wheatus one when it went out, the I Love Hartford page have picked it up and shared it multiple times as well. So I think sometimes some of the events outside of our doing get more posts. But again,
it was one of those ones. I think I emailed the venue at one point just to kind of go, I'd really like to get from a venue owner's point of view. I didn't get an email back, but I got added to their mail list instead, which I thought was like, okay, fair enough.
Okay, that's weird.
I don't know why I
got that's strange. Again, yeah, because again, we shouldn't. It's like generally it's only on ticketing things or people sign up themselves. But
yeah, I was like, all right, fair enough. I don't mind because I get the information, so it's great for me to get this sort of things. But
yeah, no, that's, but no, at the end of the day, for me, everything it should be out there.
Stuff out there then.
Yeah, it should be out there. Obviously, the different levels it may vary. That's
okay.
From there, but and as I mentioned, sometimes the showcase events for us, if it's sometimes the first time a band's playing something like that, we may. I'm not going to say deliberately do less but it is the thing of it's where we've got Republica or Wheatus, we may share that and almost encourages more traffic to the site and for people to discover it. But also the showcases, we are using those sometimes to look at what a band is about. So we kind of want to see what they do themselves as well as what we do.
Okay.
So whilst there may be extra posts, it sometimes is if they're doing things and if they're putting something on Instagram stories and they're tagging the venue, well, we'll try and reshare or anything that comes in as well from our side. Obviously, it is again that's just where it's being managed if people spot it, because there is a lot of traffic that goes through. So sometimes we can get things that have been just tagged in and we might miss things. But whenever it's done, I know that when I see it, I just click the button to try and reshare it, and the same on Twitter and Facebook less so because it's not so much a reshare thing now. It's a like and comment type platform, but
definitely.
But yeah, it is something that to me I want to see it shared. It's not we want it busy at the end of the day. Every show we want busy, because otherwise it defeats the object of it. So we're not going to try and deliberately not tell people about a show.
So last question from myself is then, so what's your plans? Obviously we've got this challenge that we have with the financial elements with the energy crisis. So what's on the agenda going forward? We're obviously going into the festival season very soon. What's on Juicebox plan for the future?
Our plans, well, continue doing what we do, and evolving and growing and taking things forwards. I think it's essentially trying to keep booking things that people want to see and bands wanting to play, and developing it. The Corn Exchange is for obviously an old venue, is still in its infancy for us. It's only last February that we reopened the doors and took it on, and obviously refurbished it, spent lots of money thanks to support from the Arts Council and things like that, bringing in whole new systems and stage and bar and everything on that side of it. It's still learning what works. At the end of the day, it is something. There has been a lot of tribute shows. I don't actually book the tribute and cover band shows on original music sort of stuff, but it is something of those have helped us kind of determine what the audience locally does want. So that's kind of been the thing of, whilst we've got to kind of balance the books in terms of making sure the owners have their bills paid, is that we can kind of go, okay, that's the easy fix. So that's why there's perhaps a lot more, say, nostalgia acts.
Yeah.
Is that we know there's generally an audience. So like Republica or even Wheatus, it is that thing, okay, we know there should be an audience for that. And if that works, one, we're gathering more data for our marketing. So that is something, as these successful shows bring that. The shows that are happening are advertised within the venue. People are then walking and seeing those things as well. There's also lots of people saying we didn't know this place had reopened. We're still getting a lot of people saying that. People had never been to the venue before.
Right.
So for us, it's going from a thing where there was perhaps 2 or 3 shows a week last year. We're now at the point where we're getting to 4 or 5 shows a week. And that to me is that we're then able to start bringing in more things. And so the local sort of showcase nights are also helping us determine, going, okay, these are the pockets of what bands there are about locally and what they're about and whether they'll fit. And if that band has some sort of following, well, actually, I can take a little bit of a gamble and bring in someone from further afield to support them. So it becomes that thing. So with the corn exchange, there's definitely a lot of there's trial and error. It's something we're really happy with how the events have been supported and what we're doing over there. And but it is something of taking that forwards. The horn, next year's 50 years of the horn, so there'll be a lot of celebrations around that and a lot of planning going on for that. We generally know how that works. It's just as much of taking that obviously forwards, allowing things to develop in how it has been over the years, and obviously offering different types of nights out, which again can be trial and error. It can be something that there's a new genre of music and someone wants to put on a night, or they've got a band and a couple of bands who want to do it, and we'll help facilitate it.
Okay.
The half moon, it's less frequently there are gigs happening, but there are gigs happening. There's a 15th of April, we've got a sort of a heavier night.
Yeah, I'm covering that one for A.D.K. So we're Scarlet Envy and a few others, so I'll be attending that and filming that one.
Scarlet Envy have ended up being quite one of our almost house bands. They're doing a lot of shows with us and across the team, and it is something and I think they've got the understanding. It's really working for them. I think they've reduced the number of shows that they were doing, and we've definitely seen an increase in the audiences starting to come for them as well. I think sometimes it just takes that thing and it clicks for a band, and they've gone, okay, this is what we're going to do. But now we do shows in Watford and Hemel as well, and it is the thing of suddenly sitting there saying to bands, actually, we've got 5 or 6 venues where we can offer shows. So there's not really any reason for you to play any of them more than sort of a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
So you're not burning your audience out by playing the same place over and over again. And that's just in Hertfordshire. So, and that to me is the thing of, that's where I say our plans are kind of to try and keep offering that. I say offering the bands the opportunities to develop, grow, do how they feel is where they're going. At the end of the day, it's about them. Without them and without the audience, then I don't get to do what I do. Our team doesn't get to do what it does. So that to me is what it's all about, and continue to do that, and long may it continue.
Very much so. Well, I just want to say a big thank you, Luke, for obviously spending the time talking about it and obviously explaining the current challenges and situations that venues are facing. And of course, obviously what we expect from the bands and all the different things going on in the Hertfordshire scene. It's just been great to speak to you, and I hope best of luck for Juicebox in the future.
No, thank you again for inviting me, and hope I didn't whittle on too much.
No problem. Take care.
Cheers, you too.